The morning I discovered what Karen Westfield had done, I stood in the ashes of 6 months of work and felt something inside me snap. My name is Marcus Chun, and I'm a 54-year-old hydroelectric engineer who bought property in Pine Ridge Valley specifically because it was outside the HOA boundaries. The previous owner, old Mr. Henderson, had warned me about the association types who lived in the gated community upstream, but I dismissed it as small-town drama. I should have listened. My 10-acre property sat at the base of the valley, right where Coal Creek narrowed before flowing into the larger watershed. It was perfect, isolated, self-sufficient, and mine. I'd spent the entire spring and summer preparing for winter, cutting and stacking 8 cord of firewood, stockpiling emergency supplies, and setting up a beautiful timber frame storage shed that I'd built with my own hands. That November morning, I walked outside with my coffee to find nothing but charred remains and ash where my shed had stood. Everything was gone. The firewood, the generator fuel, the emergency food supplies, the shed itself, a structure I'd poured my heart into, using techniques my grandfather had taught me, reduced to blackened timber and twisted metal. The smell of gasoline still hung in the air. I was staring at the devastation when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. A pearl-white Escalade pulled up, and out stepped Karen Westfield in her signature style. Designer athleisure wear, oversized sunglasses despite the overcast sky, and an expression that suggested she was about to explain something to a particularly slow child. "Oh, Marcus," she called out, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "I heard about the little fire. Such a shame." "Little fire?" I turned to face her, ash still swirling around my boots. "Karen, someone burned down my storage shed. 8 cords of wood. All my winter supplies." She tilted her head, pursing her lips in mock concern. "Well, that's what happens when you create fire hazards. The HOA board voted unanimously that your pile of wood was a danger to the community." "I'm not in your HOA," I said slowly, my jaw clenching. "My property is outside the boundary. Technically," she waved her hand dismissively, "but your little hoarding situation affects property values of the entire valley. We have standards here, Marcus. The board sent you 3 notices. I never received any notices. We sent them certified mail to your address. Not our problem if you don't check your mailbox." She smiled then, and I saw it, the satisfaction, the victory in her eyes. "We hired a licensed remediation company to handle the hazardous materials. You're welcome. You had no right. We had every right to protect our community. Now, if you need firewood, I'm sure you can buy some from the hardware store in town, like a normal person. Really, Marcus, it's almost December. Who stockpiles like that anymore? We live in civilization, not the frontier." She checked her watch, a gleaming Cartier that probably cost more than my truck. "Now, I have a holiday planning committee meeting. Do try to keep your property presentable. Some of us have home values to maintain." She drove off, leaving me standing in the ruins of my winter preparation. I spent the next hour on the phone. First with my insurance company, who informed me that arson by a third party would require a police report. Then with the sheriff's department, who sent Deputy Morrison out to take a statement. He was sympathetic, but realistic. "Marcus, without proof that the HOA specifically ordered the fire, this is going to be tough to prosecute. They'll say they hired a company to remove what they considered hazardous materials. Company says they followed procedure. It becomes a civil matter. My property isn't even in their jurisdiction. I know, and you'll probably win in court. Eventually. But that takes time and money, and winter's coming." He looked at the destruction and shook his head. "Karen Westfield is persistent. Had complaints filed against her before, but she's got lawyers on retainer." After he left, I sat on my porch and thought about the spring, about the dam. "You see, When I said I was a hydroelectric engineer, I wasn't exaggerating. I'd spent 30 years working on water management systems across 3 states. And when I bought this property, I'd spent considerable time studying the valley's hydrology. Pine Ridge Valley was shaped like a bowl, with Coal Creek running down from the mountains through a narrow gorge where my property sat and into the larger river system below. About 15 years ago, the HOA, then newly formed and flush with assessment money, had convinced the county to build a small flood control dam upstream. It created a picturesque lake that their luxury homes overlooked, complete with private docks and swimming areas. What they didn't understand, because they'd hired the cheapest contractor and ignored the engineer's recommendations, was that the dam spillway was undersized for a major flood event, and the manual release valve, the one that could be opened to prevent overflow, was positioned on the downstream side, right on the edge of my property. Mr. Henderson had shown it to me during the property tour, a rusted wheel valve hidden in the trees. They forget it's even there, he'd said. Automated system does everything. But that manual valve? That's emergency backup. County inspector makes me check it once a year to keep it operational. I walked down to the valve now, my mind churning. The weather forecast was calling for heavy rain in 2 days, one of those early winter storms that could dump 3 inches overnight. The ground was already saturated from last week's precipitation. And that dam, with its inadequate spillway, I'm not a vengeful man by nature. I believe in doing things the right way, following the rules, respecting boundaries. But Karen Westfield had burned 6 months of my labor, destroyed my property, and smiled about it. She'd done it believing there would be no consequences, that her money and her lawyers and her HOA board made her untouchable. She was wrong. That evening, I made careful documentation. I photographed the valve, checked the dam specifications in the county records, and reviewed the weather forecast. I even called the county flood control office. Hey, this is Marcus Chun. I'm the property owner downstream of the Pine Ridge Dam. Just want to confirm, in a heavy rain event, what's the protocol for the manual spillway release? The board clerk on the other end shuffled papers. Let me check. Okay, yeah. If rainfall exceeds 2 inches in 12 hours and the automated system fails, the manual valve should be opened to prevent overtopping. It's in the emergency procedures manual. And who's responsible for monitoring that? HOA is supposed to have someone check it, but honestly, that system's automated. The manual valve is just backup. Hasn't been needed in years. Got it. Thanks. I hung up, watching the clouds roll in. The storm hit right on schedule. Rain began falling Tuesday evening, steady and cold. By Wednesday morning, it was coming down in sheets. I watched the creek rise, the water turning brown and angry as it channeled through the gorge. Up at the dam, I knew the reservoir was filling rapidly. At 2 p.m., I put on my rain gear and walked the valve.